Welcome to this teaching called Cleansing the Temple. This is a teaching that has to do with the spiritual battle, and it's something that I personally experienced years ago in my own life and had to do with some things and objects that I had had in my house, which I became unaware of, or not had become unaware of, I was unaware of how they were affecting my ability of walking with power, being effective in the spiritual battle. We used to live in California, my wife Lori and I, and we had a fellowship. And the fellowship was fairly successful in the sense that we had, range 15 to 20 people that would come. But about once every 6-8 weeks, we would have maybe larger gatherings, and we'd have as many as 25 people who would show up for an afternoon, barbecues and hanging out. And then we would sometimes have teachings. Many times we had ministering sessions where we would minister healing to people and pray for people. Following one of these meetings, a friend of mine who had been coming came up to me, and she, God bless her, she came to me and she was honest. And she said, Dan, I want to mention something to you, and take it for what it's worth, but I think there might be some things that are not quite a blessing in your family room. And what she was referring to is I had a family room, which was my man cave, that I had built, added on the house. It had a lot of Western motif, a lot of Southwest American Indian artifacts and various things. And I lived in California, and I used to travel on my motorcycle throughout the country. And when I did, I'd collect mementos. Well, I had peace pipes. I had some pictures of some Indians. I had one of an Apache Indian called the Dog Soldier. I had a lot of things which I thought were inspiring. Even had a buffalo skull that hung over my fireplace. And when she said that, I understood what she was saying, because I do have some knowledge of the spiritual battle. And I following when she left, I went in that room and I prayed over it. And I realized that demons, evil spirits, can ride on physical objects. If they're attached to it and you bring an object which is unclean, unholy into your house, you can actually bring a spirit into your premises. Well, I know the authority I have in Jesus Christ, and I know that Philippians tells us that every knee in heaven, on earth, and under the earth must bow to the name of Jesus Christ, and that spirits are subject to our command in the authority of the name of Jesus Christ. Well, I cleansed my room, and I commanded that if there was any evil spirit present, I forbid them to be there. I commanded them to leave my house, etc. And I forgot about it. It was a couple months later that, after attending a workshop, I kind of had a heightened spiritual sensitivity, I would say. And as I was praying, I began to get convicted that there were some objects in my house that were not a blessing. That night, while I was asleep, the Lord woke me up, and I remember Him telling me, "Cleanse your temple." I knew what He was saying is that there were some objects in this house that had to be removed. I prayed, went down, got my Lori and I both prayed, and we went down to the family room. And as we stood there, I began to see for the first time objects in a new way, a new light. Some of these objects had markings and carvings on them, which now I began to see were pagan carvings, pagan markings. Some of the artwork actually had symbolism on it. And then I realized what the Lord was telling me is that these objects were accursed. That's what the Bible calls things when they cannot be cleansed. They're considered accursed. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 7. And in verse 26, the Amplified version says, "Neither shall you bring an abomination into your house, lest you become an accursed thing like it. But you shall utterly detest and abhor it, for it is an accursed thing." I began to realize that accursed things are things which are made, which have embedded in them, in one sense, spiritual energy, demons, if you would, because they have a legal right to that object. When I looked in my family room, I began to realize that I had some sculpture. There was a collection of various frogs that were painted in all different types of motifs. All these Indian artifacts, all of these things, many of them were accursed. Some weren't, but some were accursed. I had also been in the martial arts. I was at that time had been in the martial arts for over 10 years, and through that had collected different awards and trophies and different memorabilia, dragons, crystals, crystal balls, different things. And the Lord, as I went through room by room by room, I began to get convicted, and I collected all of them that night, and we took them out and we threw them in the trash. When I calculated up roughly, it was over $5,000 worth of materials and goods that I threw out that night. See, the problem is that there are things that we allow into our residences that are allowing demons into your life. As I've ministered to people and attempted to bring healing to them, in many instances, I have been unable to minister healing because they're holding on to accursed objects. I'm not telling you this because I want to scare anyone. I'm telling you because our ignorance of Satan's devices is what's robbing the church of its spiritual power and authority. We have got to live clean lives spiritually. You have got to be committed. And God tells us in no uncertain terms in Deuteronomy that if you bring accursed objects into your home, you will become accursed like it. Now, I'm not saying that you do that will that in any way impedes your salvation before the Lord, but there's still spiritual consequences. I ministered healing to a woman over a period of years where she progressively got better but was never healed. And then finally, the Lord revealed to her that she was holding on to crystals and different objects, found them at the back of her closet, had been involved in some studies that she had done years before. These are not games we're playing around with. When she got convicted of them and threw them out, I ministered healing and she was healed. Not because of me, but her hindrance in receiving the healing was because of her holding on to unclean objects. I don't know what it is. You can seek the Lord and He can reveal it to you. But I'm telling you, you cannot have pornography. You cannot have any of this stuff. It will defile you and defile your household. And you're giving pathway to demons. You're giving them access directly into your life. In Acts chapter 19, verse 18, the record of the first century brothers and sisters in the church says, many of those who believed now came and openly confessed their evil deeds. A number who practiced sorcery brought their scrolls together and burned them publicly. When they calculated the value of the scrolls, the total came to 50,000 drachmas. That's a lot of money. Don't be ignorant of the doors that you're leaving open, allowing evil spirits into your life. You potentially are allowing yourself to be robbed of spiritual power because of it. We need to wake up, and just like they went through and re-cleansed the temple, cleanse your temple, cleanse your house. If you want to serve God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, then get rid of the decorations, get rid of the dream catchers, get rid of the kitchen witches, get rid of any of the stuff. And you know, who needs these things? You don't know what the history is behind it. I don't care if you bought it down at the corner furniture mart or not. You know, a lot of that stuff comes from Mideastern, Indian, Pakistani. There's, clearly things that are Hindu and Buddha. Yeah, those are idols. But there's a lot of other stuff. I remember another gentleman for years struggled with sexual sin. And when the Lord revealed to him, he was holding on to 2 masks that he collected at age 12 in Africa. One of those masks had the phallic symbol on the top of it, which had been hidden to his eyesight, and another one had the mouth was shaped like female genitalia. When those things were burned, I ministered to him, and he was freed of the pressure of lust, which he had struggled with for years. Wake up, my brothers and sisters. Cleanse your temple. Serve your God, and get rid of anything which is unclean, and never allow an accursed object into your life.
Some days I forget that I'm free, and sometimes my feet don't wanna carry me